films where the monstrous is very humanized. It's scary because it's unknown, but as soon as it becomes familiar, it becomes less scary. He also believes that if you don't hand draw stuff, if you're not making stuff by hand, why are you doing this? Like, why are you, creation is something that you need to have a personal connection with. So Studio Ghibli has, I believe, 10 of the top 15 grossing animated films in Japan at this point. And some of the top grossing animated movies in America, they have been multiple times spurned by the Emmys and the Oscars and things like that because they don't understand animation. Almost always goes to something like Pixar. It's very focused on the American animation. I mean, that's obviously my opinion. I think they should always win them forever, but maybe that's not fair. So Hayao Miyazaki has retired 3 times now and returned 3 times. Supposedly he has, left for good, absolutely good, but he's not back again for the 3rd time because every time he gets another idea, he has to come back. He deals, like I said, he deals a lot with the monstrous, but only in the unknown. So as soon as they become known, they're less monstrous. So we're going to do 2 movies today. We're doing Princess Mononoke, which is one of the earlier movies. Not like early, it wasn't one of the first things they produced, but it's often attributed as like the beginning of the golden age of Studio Ghibli. Like this is when he really found when the 4 founding members, the producers, the designers, they sort of found their voice and really sort of ran with it. And it's very heavy-handed, and I think pretty much everybody, all the critics will agree to that, and he gets a little bit more delicate later. So it's a really good introduction to what he's doing. The second movie we're going to watch is Spirited Away, which takes place in a bathhouse, which is a very traditional Japanese sort of hotel, hospitality center. You guys know this. And one of the interesting things he said about Spirited Away is that he wanted to focus on this kind of young girl that his employees would often bring in their daughters, and he'd be very frustrated with some of them because they were so like limp almost, like they just couldn't do anything for themselves and they just would like whine. And he wanted to have this message of sort of like empowerment for young girls, like you have to buck up basically and be heroic. He also prefers English dubs, which is interesting. And one of the reasons he prefers English dubs is one of his frustrations with the anime industry, which is that in the anime industry, you want to sound really young. Like all of the voice actors want to sound really young and innocent and sort of squeaky almost, and he can never get them to sound like adult and strong and empowered. So, but American voice actresses tend to be a little bit older and they tend to be a little bit deeper. So he actually generally prefers the dubs, even if there are some weird translation quirks. For instance, and the Disney translators are actually, for this, pretty good. Like, they really are thoughtful, and I've read some interviews with them. They really put a lot of work into it. So for instance, at one point, Chihiro will make this symbol, and then somebody breaks it. And that is very well known in Japan. That's like it's like a cootie shot, it's a very like superstitious thing, but it's very widely understood. But how do you translate that? If no one's talking on the screen, how do you let American audiences know what the heck just happened? Because otherwise they're just making these symbols and it's meaningless. And I'm not going to tell you how they fixed it, but they do a really good job of things like that. And they do a really good job of deciding what to translate and what to just sort of leave alone and let you see if you want and ignore if you don't. So with that, I guess we will start with Princess Mononoke. Yeah, of course.
Did you make any movies outside of the studio?
He did originally, and I don't have them off the top of my head.
But obviously this is what is it?
Yes, he was not a director or head artist on any of the previous ones. He worked on the projects.
Is he an artist? I mean, is he an
yes,
animator?
Like he
artist?
physically draws. When you get an art book, that is most of it is his hand-drawn work. He's very adamant that and that's one of the reasons he keeps retiring is because it's exhausting. Especially Studio Ghibli is known for having 12-hour days, even when they're not in crunch time. So for a man who's getting older, it's very difficult to sit in a chair for 12 hours and hand draw things. they do use more digital stuff. Princess Mononoke was one of the first movies that they did use some digital techniques, which you'll kind of see, just for like huge scenes where a lot is happening. But mostly, he really believes in doing things by hand and working until you are exhausted, which is why he keeps retiring and then comes back again. So maybe he should just take extended vacations instead.
He goes to that one.
Exactly, yeah. Does anybody else have any questions?
Is that like the Rolling Stones? They keep retiring and coming back?
Pretty much,
Okay.
yeah.
They come back and bank about $20 million, so.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, Studio Ghibli is not, they're doing well, but one of the issues with Japanese animation is that the artists and writers don't often get paid very well. And Studio Ghibli is one of the exceptions, only in that they're paid enough to kind of live. And they're sort of known as one of the better studios to work at, but it's not because you're paid a lot, it's because you're paid enough to kind of get by. Whereas a lot of studios rely on kind of how it's in the US, where they'll hire contractors, so you don't have health insurance, you aren't being paid a lot, you don't know job to job what, if you have a contract or not, and you make as much money as you can produce, so you produce fast, and it's right. So it's one of the things that he's also spoken out against is this, just warehouse, like just get it done fast, and don't, care about the artists, that sort of thing. It is an issue currently. Cool. All right. Thanks.